Hey everybody, Dante from Codecademy here. Today I'm going to walk you through our new AI-powered interview simulator. This is a feature that we released a few weeks ago into beta, and we're excited to have you try it out. Now, the reason we built this is because we know that interviewing is super critical for finding a job, especially a tech job. And in today's challenging job market, it is even more important that you build your interviewing skills to stand out from the crowd. So we wanted to build something that will allow you to practice while you job hunt. So this is a tool that's powered by AI, but gives you freedom to craft a scenario that is right for you. So in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to go through how this works and how it benefits you. And hopefully at the end of this, you'll try it out yourself and give us some feedback. So let's start. So what you see here is the interview simulator landing page. And you can get here in a few ways. Number one, you can get here via our Career Center in the navigation. So if you come down here, you'll see New on Codecademy Interview Simulator. Or if you are enrolled in our full stack front-end or back-end engineering career paths, you'll see a link to the page here. So you see just release practice interview scenarios using our new AI powered tool. So if you click any of those buttons, you'll get to the interview simulator page, which is where you'll see a description about what it is, prepared by OpenAI, and then you'll see an empty state here. So when you finish your interviews, they will actually populate here, so you'll be able to click on them and refer back to them and back to the feedback that you get from the scenario. And just as an FYI, so if you are a free learner, you get access to this, to one interview for free. So you get to try it out for free if you are a free learner. As a plus or pro learner, you get access to 5 interviews per day, right? So that's a good amount to practice while you are job hunting. So free learners can try this for free once, and then plus and pro get up to 5 interviews per day. So let's start building our interview. So this is actually the most powerful part of this feature, is that you get to actually personalize and customize your interview scenario based on job title, job level, the scenario, the company type, and you get to add in your experience. So you can see here with the job title, we are starting with 3: full stack engineer, front end, and back end engineer. So these happen to be 3 of our most popular career paths. And these are also 3 of the most popular job roles that people look for when going into tech roles specifically. So for me, I'm going to start with full stack. I have some experience with front end development. I also have some experience with back end development, building apps with, let's say, Flask, Python Flask, and APIs. So I am looking for a full stack engineering position. Now we get to job level. So obviously, every role has a level attached to it. Some roles may be entry-level roles for people who are relatively new in the industry or coming out of college. Some roles may be mid-level and some roles may be senior level. For me, I'm looking for entry-level roles, right? I have about 2 years of experience. So I'm still looking for entry-level roles, not yet ready for mid-level roles. So I'm going to click that. And now we get to the interview scenario. And this is one of my favorite parts. So when you go through an interview process for any job, not just technical jobs, you usually have different types of interviews. You have a phone screen that you typically do with a recruiter. Then you have behavioral interviews that a recruiter may ask you, but also you may have behavioral interviews with other people in the organization. And then you have technical interviews, which is typical for technical roles in tech. And then final rounds typically happen with, leadership or someone who is higher up who will ask you a set of questions. For the beta phase of this feature, we are starting out with just phone screens and behavioral interviews. These are scenarios that most people will encounter when interviewing for roles. And then obviously, as you go throughout the interview process, you start to get to the latter parts of the interview. But we're going to start out here with phone screens and behavioral interviews. And for my scenario right now, I'm going to click on the phone screen. And now the fourth step is choosing the company type. So there are different types of companies that you could work for, right? There are small companies, startups, medium enterprises, multinational corporations, right? If you're somebody who's trying to get into big tech, you'll probably be looking for a multinational corporation scenario, right? For me personally, I'm a startup guy. I love the grind. I love startups. Those are the types of roles that I'm looking for this scenario. So I am going to click on startup. And now we get to our experience. So here in 3 steps, we can add a little about ourselves, right? So here in this box, I have to add information about my work experience or volunteer experience. So I'm actually going to update this to 20, let's say 2020 to 2022. I was a junior engineer at Codecademy, which is kind of fake because I wasn't, but for the sake of the video, let's say was a junior engineer at Codecademy, right? And let's also say for a year, I had an engineering internship at IBM, right? So let's say IBM, let's say 2019 to 2020, right? So that's my work experience. Again, I am relatively junior level engineer, so don't have a lot of experience. But I believe this is enough to get me in the door. And now we go to projects and skills. So this is where you list out all of the skills that you have, your hard skills, soft skills, and also any projects that you've worked on, right? So for me, it's already populated. So JavaScript, HTML, I'm going to add CSS here. Know a little bit of Python. Again, this is a full stack role, so I have to know some backend languages as well. I know Python and Flask. jQuery is, basically JavaScript. I'm going to add APIs. I've built platforms with APIs before. Um, I will also add in some projects that I've worked on. So add a new line here. Built an e-commerce mobile, let's say, website. I've also built a SaaS platform, built a B2B SaaS, say SaaS platform, right? And you can feel free to add more things in there as well. Let's say for the sake of it, I know Excel and I know SQL and I know, let's say Java, so I have pretty good skills and experience. And education, finally. I'm just going to keep it as a BS in computer science. I think for a lot of people, that's typical. If you are coming in from another industry, you can put in your degree here because you'll have time to explain your background and your projects and whatnot. So for some people who are already in tech, maybe you have a degree in tech. You can put that here, but also feel free to put in another degree if you have it, if you're transitioning from one industry to tech. So now we're done with setting up our interview scenario, and we will save that experience. So here it is. We are going to do a phone screen with Sasha, right? So what this is going to do is this is going to mimic and mirror a real phone screen. So I'm excited. I have my glass of water right next to me, and typically phone screens are 30 minutes. It may be longer depending on what company you're trying to work for. But the baseline typical phone screen is 30 minutes. So let's start. So welcome to my practice interview. We'll get started in a few seconds. So now we have the first question from the recruiter, Sasha. Hello, it's great to speak with you today. To get started, could you please tell me a bit about yourself and your background? So this is where you would tell the recruiter about your professional background. So when a recruiter asks this, they're not asking a personal question, right? They're not asking you about your favorite color or your favorite food or how many siblings you have. They really want to know, they really want a snapshot of your professional career and what you've done, right? You don't have to go into a ton of detail. Just give them a snapshot of who you are professionally. And in this feature, what we can do two things. We can type in our response and we can speak our response here. Right now, I'm going to type in my response and say the following. I worked on numerous full stack projects in the past 3 to 4 years, working for Codecademy and IBM. And I'm completely making this up, but you get the gist. I spent a lot of time using Python and Flask and APIs to build small apps and features that have helped the companies that I worked for drive more user engagement and revenue. Let's say my expertise is in, let's say, using Python to build, let's say, back-end apps. And that's my response. Now, Sasha says, sounds like you have some solid experience in full stack development, particularly with Python and Flask. Can you tell me about a project you worked on that you're particularly proud of? Yes, I've worked on many projects, so I will go into some detail on one. I recently built a website that helps, let's say, white collar workers improve their day-to-day efficiency with, let's say, front end and back end mini apps. And let's say I also implemented AI through, let's say, OpenAI's API. And let's talk about the results. So typically, when you talk about projects and things you've done throughout the interview process, you also want to talk about what the result is. So let's say after building this app, this website, my company saw a 32% increase in customer engagement and 11% increase in revenue. That's my response. Now, Sasha asks, that's impressive. It's great to hear about the impact your work had on user engagement and revenue. Now, moving forward in your career, what are you hoping to gain from your next role? I'm hoping to work on a wider variety of projects that incorporate new technologies like AI. I'm also hoping to work on projects that have more visibility spelled visibility wrong. Inside and outside the company. Lastly, I also want to work on projects that have a positive impact on our society. Now, this is where a recruiter will ask you about, you know, details about what you're looking for in terms of your role. So here, Sasha is asking us in terms of the company location and work environment, what do we prefer? Now, this is very relevant in today's day and age, especially post-COVID, where a lot of work is either hybrid or remote work. Although some companies are trying to get more employees to come back into the office, this is something you should learn beforehand. Before you get into the interview process, you should learn about a company's remote work policy. Um, if you can't learn about that on the website, via the website, this is the time to ask about that when you are given the opportunity in the phone screen. So right now, we're going to tell Sasha that we are looking for remote only jobs, which again depends on your preferences. If you are somebody who's okay with hybrid, you can tell a person that. But for me personally, for this situation, I am looking for remote only. I am looking for remote only jobs because I have 2 children. So the flexibility is important for me. However, I am willing to go into the office once in a while, maybe once per quarter. Understood. Flexibility is key, especially with family priorities. Now let's switch gears slightly and move to a technical question. So Sasha is now asking me a technical question. Again, this is not a technical role, but what a recruiter might do is try to probe a little bit at your expertise and your skills, um, and try to understand how fit you are for a role. So I'll respond to Sasha and say, okay, front-end development deals with, and please do not grade me on this. I am not an expert. So this may not be an expert answer, but I'm going to do the best I can. Languages. So front-end languages and front-end, let's say front-end languages like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So this is a very hard question for me right now because I'm a beginner. So I'm going to do the best I can. And this is a very simplistic answer that I do not recommend. Java and C++. Front end includes website styling and interaction, whereas back end includes say database management, servers, and let's say in servers. I'm going to stop there. Not the best answer, but this is a demo, so we're going to go with it. Great. So now Sasha's asking me about a time when I had to integrate an external API and the challenges I faced during that process. So I recently said that I integrated OpenAI's API into a SaaS app. So I'm going to talk about that experience. Absolutely. I recently integrated OpenAI's API into a SaaS app. The biggest difficulty was setting up rate limits because the API was a paid API based on usage. So I had to think strategically, spelled strategically wrong, about how to allow users to access API-based features. Now it's asking me about my previous role at Codecademy. What was the most challenging project or task that I experienced? So let's say I had to work on making that app more accessible, which was difficult because there are so many accessibility guidelines and best practices. I was able to work with stakeholders across the org to understand important accessibility issues and address them with my code. So now this is the end of the interview. Now we are going to get feedback from Sasha in a few seconds. Now, here is my feedback from Sasha. It says, great job, what I did well. So what I did well, I articulated my experience and my career goals. I gave specific examples when asked about projects. I also explained technical concepts, suggestions for next time. My responses were comprehensive and well structured, but I need to provide more specific details and examples to support my claims. So for example, I talked about the OpenAI API integration, but I needed to elaborate on the specific strategies I use to manage rate limits. And then I needed to talk about the details for the accessibility issues as well. And then she tells me, finally, remember to pause briefly after answering and check if the interview has any follow-up questions. So I made a strong case for my abilities as a full stack engineer. Sasha was impressed, so that's great. And my answers displayed a good understanding of various tech concepts. And that's it. Now, if I go back to save interviews, what I'll see here is my interview that I just did with Sasha and my grade, right? And then I can go back in here and look at the feedback, right? And I can continue to do this, right? If you're a plus or pro learner, you can do this 5 times a day, every day, and really get that practice in, right? Practice is critical for building your interviewing skills, right? So luckily, this wasn't a real interview. I'm not interviewing for entry-level roles, but you get the gist of how this works and how it can be powerful. So you can personalize this scenario for what you're looking for, then get that critical feedback that you need to iterate on your interviewing skills. And you can do this while you're job hunting. So search for those jobs, practice your interviews, and then you will be prepared to do the real interviews whenever you get that interest from a company that you've applied for. So we hope this helps. Please try this out. Again, if you're a free learner, you get a free interview. If you're a Plus or Pro learner, you get 5 a day. Try this out, see how it works for you, and provide us with feedback in the forums or on social media. Or if you have any issues with it, you can feel free to contact our support team as well. Thank you. Have a good day.